Welcome back students to our free learning platform Catalyst for IIT JEE. This is a new lecture series on basic concepts of chemistry. This is the first chapter of your class 11 and this chapter is moderately important for your competitive exam starting from NEET, JEE Main and JEE Advanced, but this chapter is very important to understand the chemistry. So this chapter we plan to cover the whole chapter in 2 lectures. The first lecture will have the importance of chemistry, definition of matter, classification of matter, properties of matter, and how do we measure those properties of matter along with units. In the second lecture, we will introduce the concept of mole, molar mass, atomic mass, laws of chemical combination, and percent composition. So if you have not subscribed us yet, please do subscribe because this number of subscription and the number of like motivate us to grow further. So please do subscribe. Now let's move forward to understand this chapter. So what is chemistry? Roald Hoffmann, this is a very famous scientist, had already given a very nice definition of chemistry. Chemistry is the science of molecules and their transformations. It is the science not so much of the 100 elements but of the infinite variety of molecules that may be built from them. Okay. So chemistry is the science of molecules. So we all know that in the periodic table we have 118 elements, 118 elements. So the chemistry is not the science about only those 118 elements. See, it is the science about the molecules that you can make from those elements, and you can make infinite number of molecules from those elements, correct? So in this chapter will provide you background knowledge which will help you to understand the further chemical concepts during the whole course. Okay, so in your 11 and 12, also for your NEET, JEE Main and JEE Advanced. And this chapter specifically provides some definitions, very important definitions like matter, mass, density, weight, molar mass, etc. Okay, so this chapter also deals with the very important part. This is the laws of chemical combination. So this is very important part that you need to understand, and we will cover that in our lecture 2. So what chemistry does in our daily life? What is the importance of chemistry in our daily life? So there are chemistry everywhere. If you need to just find out where the chemistry is involved. Now chemical products that we use daily to improve our quality of life involves chemistry. Like toothpaste, face wash, all have chemical components. So chemistry is there in the chemical products that improve our quality of life. Chemistry is there in food company because in safety protocols you will find out how to keep your food safe, how to keep your food away from fungus, and there is a chemistry involved. Chemistry in daily products are very common, like toothbrush are nothing but made of polymers, and polymers are one type of molecules. Also in case of detergent, these are also molecules. Okay, and the preferred orientations allow the formation of this kind of detergent. Now chemistry in healthcare products are one of the most important topic because most of the cases cisplatin, Taxol, these are some molecules, and these molecules are used for treatment of cancer, like azithromycin is used for AIDS treatment. Now in production of crops you use pesticides, insecticides. These are also chemical molecules. Okay, so chemical components helps us in production of crops, and also chemistry is there in developing environment. When you try to develop or when you try to improve your environment, you need to use the chemistry. So in one sentence, chemistry is everywhere in our daily life, and it is indeed necessary to understand the chemistry to improve our daily life, correct? Now let us move to the definition of matter. What do we mean by matter? Matter is anything which has a mass and which occupies some space is called matter. Okay. Example are book, pen, laptop, you, money, phone, etc. So as you can see here, your book has a definite mass, correct? Now if you see, your book also occupies some space, and that is why the book is called a matter, like your pen, laptop, money, etc. Now if you see water, ice and steam, they are also called matter, but clearly their physical states are different. What do you mean by physical states are different? As you can see, steam is not liquid. Steam is like a gaseous thing. Ice is solid and water is liquid. Clearly, these physical states of these three terms are different. So, this is known as states of matter. Now, detailed discussion about the states of matter is already done by a lecture in a lecture by Subhendu he is from IIT Kanpur, and I will provide a link in the description if you have not watched this video. So for basic description of the states of matter, you can watch the video. You can watch the first lecture of the gaseous states of matter by Subhendu. I will provide the link in the description box. Now there are some important definitions that you are already aware of, that like mass, weight, volume and density. So mass is the substance mass is the amount of matter present in a substance, correct? So the mass is constant because the amount of matter is not going to change when you change a place, when you change a place from one to another. But weight is the force exerted by gravity on an object. Now we know that when you change a place, like when you move from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, the force exerted by gravity changes, correct? The gravitational force changes, and because of that the weight of your substance is going to change. So weight is not a constant, however mass is a constant quantity. Now volume is the amount of space occupied by a substance, correct? This is very well known to you. And density is nothing but the mass divided by volume. So in unit volume, how much matter or what is the amount of matter present in your sample is called the density. Now, how do you identify a matter? If you want to identify a matter, you need to have some specific properties. So the properties of matter define a matter. So there are two types of properties: physical properties and chemical properties. So physical properties of matter are those by which identification of substance is possible without doing any composition change by chemical reaction. That means to identify a substance, you just need to see. You don't have to do any chemical reaction or any composition change to identify the matter. Like color, you can see the color of a matter, and from color sometimes you can identify a product. Okay. Similarly, odor or smell is also a good physical property by which you can identify a particular matter. Like, as you all know, that there are some chemical formulas like ammonia. From the smell you can identify that this is ammonia. But for water, you see there are no odor or smell. So if you keep two containers, in one you keep water and in the other container you keep ammonia, you can certainly distinguish which is ammonia and which is water. So this is a good physical property of matter. Now there are melting point, density, boiling point, etc. In all these cases, you don't do any chemical reaction or any composition change. So these are physical properties. Now in case of chemical properties, you need to do chemical reactions, and by which you change the composition of the material. But even after you change the composition of the material, so from the change you can guess which material this is. So by the chemical change, properties of the substance is determined. Now like reactivity of acids and bases, and also the combustion. So these are the things we will be encountering all the time in the throughout the course of this 11 and 12 chemistry. So we will discuss this concept of reactivity with acids and bases, combustion in detail in later classes. Now, when you have these physical properties or chemical properties, you need to somehow measure it, correct? So suppose density. So there are some materials that have low density, there are some materials that have high density. So you need to measure those properties, correct? So how do you measure those properties precisely? So for that you need to have some units. And what are these measurements and units? We will come in our next slide. Now measurements, you need to do this quantitatively. What do you mean by quantitatively? You need to have some numbers. Like density, I can say this is low density, this have low density, this has high density. But in scientific community, in scientific investigations, people ask about the numbers, not high density, low density. People will ask what is the density. You need to have some quantitative measurement, and for that you need to have some units. Like you went to a grocery shop to buy rice. Now you can ask the shopkeeper that he want 1 kg rice, right? If you ask you want 1 rice, this is not going to make any sense. So you need to involve this kg. What is this kg? This is unit. So units are required for quantification. Now these units are very important to define the amount as well. Like if you ask 1 kg rice versus 1 gram rice, certainly the quantities are different, correct? So this is a very common thing you encounter in your daily life. So 1 kg rice will be a lot of rice. However, in 1 gram rice, the quantity will be very less. So this unit here define the amount, correct? So this unit and the number as well. Now there are some physical quantities, and these are the units of these physical quantities. Like length has the SI unit meter, mass has the SI unit kilogram, weight has the SI unit kilogram meter second to the power minus 2, or it is also called Newton. Time has the unit second, temperature has the unit Kelvin, volume has the unit meter cube, density has the unit kg per meter cube, and this is very important, where the intensity is a physical quantity and the unit of intensity is candela. Okay. Now let us move to the classification of matter. So matter can be divided into two things. One is states of matter, that will be discussed, or that is already discussed by Subhendu, and the second one is classification of matters. So how do you differentiate matters? So there are two parts. First one is mixture and the second one is pure substances. Now from pure substances you can have two types of pure substances, elements and compounds. And in case of mixture you can have two types of mixtures, homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. Now let us understand what these pure substances are. Now in case of pure substances, the composition is fixed for pure substances. It cannot be changed by simple methods. So what do we mean by this composition change? We will see now. There are two types of pure substances, as we already told, elements and compounds. In case of elements, it contains only one type of atoms, and that can be atoms or molecules. Okay, these elements, these can be atoms or molecules both. Now for molecules, two or more same atom combine to form molecules. Now as you can see here, the elements contain only one type of atoms, like hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, copper, silver, gold. As you can see, all are in atomic forms. But H2, this is a molecule, this is in molecular form. But in case of H2, two same atoms, two hydrogen atoms combine to give the molecule. Like ozone, 3 oxygen atoms combine to form the O3 molecule. So these are pure substances, correct? And these fall under the category elements. Now in case of compounds, two or more atoms of different elements combined together. Now, pay close attention to this definition. Two or more atoms of different elements combined together in a definite ratio. So this is very important, the word definite ratio. Like as for example, if you see water, so in water there are two types of elements, correct? H and oxygen. But the composition, the ratio of H is to oxygen is 2:1, and this is fixed. You cannot have H3O and then you call it as water. For water, the composition is fixed. This ratio of the elements is fixed. Even for ammonia, NH3, where nitrogen is to hydrogen ratio is 1:3, and in case of glucose, C6H12O6, the carbon hydrogen oxygen ratio is 1:2:1. Now for these compounds, we cannot separate these into simpler elements. So like for H2O, you cannot separate the H2 out and the O out. In case of ammonia, you cannot separate nitrogen and hydrogen out, okay, by normal physical methods. So these are also pure substances and these are called compounds. Okay, so pure substances, in case of pure substances, the composition is fixed. As you have already seen, the composition is fixed. The ratio H is to oxygen is fixed, nitrogen is to hydrogen is fixed in case of ammonia. So pure substances will have fixed composition and you cannot change it by simple methods like hand picking methods, but you can separate it out by doing chemical reactions. Okay, now in case of mixtures, what is very interesting, the mixture contains many particles, two or more pure substances. Now the ratio can be anything like sugar solution, air, tea. Now in case of sugar solution, you can add little sugar or you can add a lot of sugar, correct? So the ratio of sugar is to water can be anything. It depends on you. Now there are two types of mixture, homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. Now in case of homogeneous mixture, the components that you mix completely with each other, the components that you use will mix completely with each other, like your sugar solution. If you add sugar into water and then you mix it very well, then the sugar will mix completely with water. So the particles of the mixture are uniformly distributed throughout the mixture. Now in the sugar solution, if you take a spoon of solution from the top of the solution and if you take the solution from the bottom of the solution, the taste will be same because all the sugar particles of the mixture are uniformly distributed throughout the solution. Okay, so in terms of density, you can call that densities are same at every point of the mixture, like sugar solution, salt solution. So these are called homogeneous mixture. But in case of heterogeneous mixture, the composition is not uniform. As for example, if you mix salt and sugar, so these components of mixture can be separated out by simple physical methods like hand picking. So if you mix salt and sugar, then in one part the salt composition is going to be different than the other part. Like if you mix salt and sugar and then you taste it from one side, then you may feel that that portion has a more salt than sugar, and on the other side, on the other part, it may have less salt than the sugar. So clearly the mixture of salt sugar or the mixture of salt and sand, these mixtures are not uniform, the composition are not uniform at all throughout the mixture. And also in case of heterogeneous mixture, you can separate it out by hand picking, like you mix salt and sugar and then you can separate the salts and you can separate the sugar by your hand, correct? So these are called heterogeneous mixture, and the examples are salt sugar mixture. Salt proportions are not same throughout the mixture, as I already mentioned. So today we discussed how the chemistry is blend in our daily life, and we also discussed some useful definitions. We discussed properties of matter and how to measure those properties of matter along with units, and we discussed the classification of matter, where we discussed mixtures and pure substances, and Finally, we discussed the concept of homogeneous and heterogeneous mixtures along with some good examples. So if you like this video, please like, share with your friends, and if you have not subscribed us yet, please subscribe and hit this bell icon so that you do not miss any single video from our channel. So click this bell icon because you will get notification from our channel when we upload a new video. Thank you very much for your attention.